Chapter 1 Rebirth in the Underworld. In the human world, there is a clear moon and dim lights. The high-rise courtyard with gray bricks and ink tiles is solemn and quiet under the heavy nightlight. The moonlight is not dim. On the contrary, it has a cold attitude, and there is no cloud cover. It is reflected directly on the gray wall, giving people an eerie feeling. The courtyard door is not closed. There are no human voices, dog sounds, or any frogs or insects. Walking into the door, the concierge on the left is tightly closed. Only the faint warmth of the footstool in front of the door can be caught, and the faint lingering breath of the human body is captured. The background of the screen wall is pale, but the picture is a thick iron tree branch mixed with the night, exuding a terrifying thorn. The road leading to the main wing is paved with black-gray cobblestones, winding like a python. There are no flowers or grass on either side of the road, and the ground is a pale yellowish white. The doors of the wing rooms on both sides were open. One side was completely dark, and the other side was dimly illuminated by weak candlelight, and not a single human voice could be heard. The empty, clean courtyard is filled with uncontrollable uneasiness and fear. Walking along the stone path, there was no sound of the soles of boots, as if they were floating on the ground. Only after passing by, the water mist on the surface of the cobblestones floated and gathered again, could one confirm that they had been stepped on. In front of the door of the main wing, an extremely thick cactus is kept in a huge pot. The thorns are slightly yellow, and the roots are struggling to stand upward. However, at the bottom, the rotten black roots are breathing hard, seeming to announce the end of the world. Even so, no one can ignore the awe-inspiring power of this cactus in its prime. The door of the wing was still open silently, without any curtain. After walking in, the person who was waiting silently and weeping did not notice it, so he came to the bed without any obstruction, waiting for the moment when his soul and body left. The old man on the bed was once a powerful figure of the generation. When you stayed, his soul was extremely clear. He felt the cold breath of the visitor instantly, and he smiled slightly in the air. "Here we go, let's go." After saying that, the old man on the bed exhaled his last long breath, and a vague shadow emerged from his body in an instant and floated away from his body. The shadow stood and looked back for a moment and smiled at the two envoys who came in without any nostalgia. "Let's go." The two envoys were quite polite. "Sir, please come first." The shadow no longer showed humility and floated out of the door. Immediately behind him came the heartbreaking cry. He paused for a moment, but still smiled broadly and said, "The death of a human being does not mean the death of gods, so what is there to be sad about?" It did not stop floating, but inadvertently, the shadow seemed to wipe towards the eyes. The shadowless soles of the feet brushed, and a drop of crystal fell from the sky. Before it hit the ground, it had dissipated and could not be found again. The shadow drifted towards the desolate suburbs with familiarity and stopped in an open field. The moonlight was like water, illuminating the branches of some dead trees in the distance that were getting stronger and stronger. The old crow standing on the branches, after seeing them from a distance, flew away with a croak. Its fear also infected other birds. They spread the fear to each other and fled to the sky. At the end of the sky, there was still an indelible darkness. In this season, the grass and trees in the wilderness are growing luxuriantly, but the birds and insects are not chirping. The shadow understands this unusual silence and murmurs comfort. "It'll be fine in a while. It'll be fine in a minute." The two envoys who had been following him walked up to Shadow and whispered the usual terminology into the vast space. The voice was low, and he couldn't understand what it was. Maybe it was the original language of the underworld envoys, Shadow thought. As the terminology was murmured, the sky gradually changed color, and a black appeared vaguely at the end of the unknown place. The black struggled and stretched into a black line. The black line stood solemnly, but did not remain straight. Instead, it slowly fainted vertically and at the same time spread to both sides, like a net fishing in the sea, forming a net-like envelope. The closer you get, the heavier the ink added to the mesh becomes, until it covers the sky and completely covers the cold moonlight tonight. The fog is filled with color, and no light in the world is allowed to penetrate. The black fog continues to travel until it is as thick as glue, completely isolated from the outside world. The shadow and the two envoys were unknowingly wrapped in the black mist and embraced into it. One of the envoys bowed and saluted and said, "Sir, I'm sorry. Please let Shao Chai guide you." As he said that, he took the lead and walked in front. The shadow had somehow returned to its physical form at this time. It was still wearing the clothes it was wearing when it left. Walking in the corridor shrouded in black mist, its bare feet did not feel cold. Looking at the end of the corridor from afar, it is extremely dim and indistinct, as if reaching the end is an unreachable thing. The edges on both sides of the corridor are blurred, and it is impossible to judge. Under the shroud of black mist, the tall halls that seem to be invisible, how wide are they? For a moment, these palaces seem to be next to you. You can reach out and touch them, and in the blink of an eye, they vaguely disappear into the empty and dark depths. The palaces seem to have vitality. Based on the breath of the entrant, you can infer which palace is suitable for retaining the entrant. Shadow understands that the entire 10 halls of the underworld are actually a kind of dark ability that performs its own duties. They have a keen sense of smell and initial judgment, and can make rough classifications, but the final judgment is coordinated by the lords of each hall who master these dark energies. If it were not for him today, the souls queuing in would have been sucked into their own realms by these energies. The appearance colors of these palaces are dark blue, dark green, light gray, and even blood red, etc. They are shaped in the same pattern, except that the names and functions are engraved on the top of the palace with words that mortals cannot understand. There are no doors in each hall. After the black fog is dispersed, you can freely check the functions of each hall. The judgment here is after death, which is often much fairer than in the mortal world. Abandoning all the harassment of the mortal world, whether the soul is dirty or pure cannot be hidden from the eyes of Lord Yama. After walking as far away as a century at the end of the Yong Road, you can finally hear the sound of water. When you get closer, a putrid smell that does not exist in this world hits your face. This rotten odor is thick, accumulating the evil that has been deposited since the beginning of chaos. The human world has only a short history of hundreds of millions of years, and evil has sprouted since the beginning of the world. The river water is not composed of water, but the oily residue of the soul that was crushed hundreds of millions of years ago and tempered by the fire of hell. It comes from the furnace at the bottom of hell, burning, corroding, pungent, and smelly. You can't even describe the color and the way it rolls. It is an oily conveyor belt. During the conveyance, the humanoid ghost is clearly visible. It is burned and corroded just right. It makes you heartbroken, but cannot let the sinful soul die like this. So he screamed, struggled, and was in great pain, but his voice was blocked and he could only twitch silently. These ghosts in the sticks are all evildoers in the world. Before they are sent to the incinerator and ground into oily residue, they must suffer thousands of years of torture in the sticks. After that, their dirty souls can be sent to die. The shadow sighed as he walked and continued to move against the path of the sticks. After a long time, he reached his destination. "Sir, please." The shadow also handed over his hand and thanked him. "Thank you both for leading the way. See you in the next life." After saying that, he turned his back, and the ghost guards gave him a gentle push behind him. In a blink of an eye, all the human figures and ghosts disappeared. The shadow was sent into a huge desert world. The world seems round but not round, square but not square. At the end, it is bottomless, empty and solemn, while nearby, it is exuding gray and as dim as a dead oil lamp. There is no ordinary desert soil or sand on the ground, only jagged rocks with unclear edges. No matter how big or small, there is no flat surface on these rocks, so you can't sit on them. You can only stand or float. There is absolutely no sunlight, not even the cold reflection of moonlight, and there is no wind. There is only a cluster of erratic, blue-white, and weak phosphorus fire far in the sky, crossing the layers of fog-like barriers, bringing a vague transparency to the world. It actually has trees with pitch-black skin as dark as ink green, hard yet extremely flexible. The roots of the trees penetrate deeply into the rock, firmly filling every inch of the rock with every root. When the tree is uprooted, a huge rock is brought up. When the rock breaks, the tree falls. When the tree dies, the rock becomes like powder and is difficult to shape. The bottom of the tree is firm and upward, and the shape of the branches is beyond imagination, bending like a snake, circling strangely. Each curling thick branch looks with disdain at the twisting and suppressing power from space. What is bent is the branch. What is unyielding is the backbone. It is detached, indifferent, and cold towards the causes and consequences of the desolate world. This world is usually dead silent, separated from the noise of the world, and the howls of hell cannot be heard. Only the managers of this desolate land, after immersing themselves in sketching out the required quantities, break off the horns from their heads and blow the rallying horn into the desert. Woo! The horn became deeper and deeper, vibrating the barriers of the space. The barriers were arrogant and powerful, and an extremely powerful dark force instantly filled every proton in the space. The protons were encouraged, and the dead space seemed to be throbbing before life. This is also a space where souls are wandering around. Every minute, countless unwilling souls are thrown from high altitudes or float out from the gaps in strange rocks. These wandering souls usually have no mass, and their transparent and empty bodies are like gossamers. Even if they're superimposed on each other, there is no numerical change. Their eyes were closed, and they could hardly hear any sound. As the horn assembly order was issued, their empty souls were crushed and absorbed by the protons in the space. They consciously lined up in a long queue and approached the Naiha Bridge in an orderly manner. Pemeng, who had silky green hair, filled a bowl of soup, awakened their souls, and warned, "Don't remember your past life, and enjoy your next life. Don't look back. Don't look back." The voice is compassionate and sincere. The awakened soul was no longer agitated or nostalgic, so he drank the yellow soup in one gulp and walked resolutely onto the Naiha Bridge. Under the bridge is a foot-wide path, lined with fiery red bienhua flowers. The petals stretch and sway, surrounded by dark green branches and leaves. The flowers are brightly colored and look like they are dripping blood. Every soul that walks by will be involuntarily pulled by it, and with every light touch, the warmth in the flower follows the heels of nothingness, filling the soul that has forgotten the past life with the necessary tenacity to live in this world, and guiding the soul where to go, at the end of the road, through the fog-like barrier, to reincarnate as a human being. This is a transit station after the Lord of the Underworld pronounces judgment on all ghosts, the space of the afterlife. Those who can be sent or thrown into the space of the afterlife are the souls of ordinary people. They have no great evil and do not possess any merit. They are just reincarnations from life to life. Of course, there are also special ones, such as this Lord Shadow. He was not affected by the ghost's horn, but walked directly to Pemeng's table. Pemeng seemed to have expected it and poured the soup into a bowl. The black glazed pottery bowl, the jade white clear soup. The soup was crystal clear, reflecting the appearance of the old days. Pemeng handed over the clear soup and congratulated calmly. "Don't miss your past life. Enjoy your next life. Don't look back. Don't look back." The adult smiled slightly and drank the whole bowl without putting it down. "How many reincarnations do I have to go through before I can forget this mysterious bowl by the Naiha Bridge?" As he spoke, He looked at Pemeng calmly. Pemeng lowered her eyes, and when she raised them again, a layer of complexity flashed across her eyes. Your Excellency, you will understand. Without waiting for Pemeng's response, he easily stepped onto the bridge and walked away following the guidance of the flowers on the other side. It is also in a space shrouded in clouds and mist, and it is also a place far away from the human world, but the color of the clouds and mist is white and peaceful. The Buddha was sitting in front of the pond. The sound of his disciples chanting in the distance came from the distance, which made him feel peaceful and at ease. However, the lotus pond in front of him was actually a little different. He wondered to himself, usually at this time, the lotus flowers have already bloomed and faded. It should be the season of lotus roots. Why is there a small water lily lying at my feet at this time? The Buddha was curious and touched it lightly with his hand. The water lily bloomed and took shape as the Buddha's light shone. Buddha twisted his fingers and sighed. All things are conditioned, and all conditioned phenomena are the result of the combination of causes and conditions. Dependent origins arise from time to time, and they cease to exist when conditions are exhausted. Amitabha. Chapter 2. Leaves, Origin. Flowers, Birth. It's time! A sigh came from the tree in the afterlife space, and with the sound, the tree began to change. In the middle of the trunk, the tough bark seemed to be suddenly supported by something from the inside. First, a semicircular bulge slowly floated up. The bulge continued to advance forward, and the dark green color became lighter and thinner. It gradually became like a human face. The human face was light. Twisting slightly, the bark tightened but could not stop its advance, and finally broke open quietly at an extreme point. First, the forehead poked out, and then below it, a pair of eyes condensed with thousands of stars jumped out. The stars flowed, and in an instant, the whole tree became alive. The curved branches also seemed to be infected by agility. The winding and hanging branches fell suddenly, but formed strong arms at the moment they came out. The open arms shook gently, and the solid chest stood straight. This is an extremely handsome young man wearing a dark green robe. You cannot describe his facial features in detail in words, because when you look at them, those star-like eyes will instantly take you into the deep night sky. The night sky is so dark and profound that you cannot breathe or think. You can only chase a shining light and fly to an unknown place, and in that place, there is a clear spring of stars. The sparkling stars reflect your intoxicated appearance. Only in the corners of his slightly pursed lips, there was a hint of loneliness, arrogance, and awe. The young man was silent for a moment. The corners of his robe fluttered, and he lifted his legs and walked out of the tree. The surface of the tree healed silently the moment he left, as if nothing had happened. The young man walked forward slowly, ghosts all floating along the way, and the green leaves on the other side of the river seemed to be welcoming his arrival. He is the leaf messenger of the other shore flower, Mandala flower. Mandala draws a turbid current from the river with his left hand, and guides this turbid current with his right hand to swirl around the rock where the flower is rooted. When the concentration reaches a certain standard, press lightly with both hands. Go! The turbid current then disappeared into the rocks. After a while, the green leaves seemed to be full of food and became thicker and greener. Mandala then sat down cross-legged and looked at the Bana flower in front of her. This is an extremely peculiar flower. It grows a solitary stem in the rock. The stem is not green, but white and transparent. Under the dim light of the phosphorus fire in the afterlife space, it is even more void. Surrounding the flower stem are green leaves that have just been fed. The green leaves are not attached to on top of the flower stem. It is rooted deep in the rock like a flower stem. The leaves stretch from the inside out, surrounding the stem. At the end of the stem, the membrane petals stretch enchantingly. The bright red color is like the blood that has just been poured out of the heart. Half of it is given to the reincarnated soul, and the other half is a fight against fate. Mandala looked at the flower, and he always thought that the leaves in his area were always surrounding the petals, and the petals were struggling, and the so-called flattery was just the slightest trembling after exhaustion.
Why?
He asked, empathizing with his feelings and feeling pity. The origin of the flower is like a secret that has not been passed down from generation to generation. Even though he is the messenger of the flower and leaf from the underworld, he has not heard of it. He only knows that there is an immortal soul between the leaves and flowers. The soul is arrogant and weird and needs the magic power of the heaven and the underworld to suppress it. He is not the first generation Yi messenger, but he knows nothing about whether he has a predecessor or who his predecessor was. Even the lords of hell in the palaces of the underworld never mentioned it. He was deep in thought when footsteps came from behind him and a charming voice shouted, "Brother Luo Hua, it's been 500 years. Haven't you seen enough of these flowers?" He didn't need to look back to know that this was Xue Qin, the daughter of Lord Yen of the 10th Palace, the owner of the afterlife space. A feeling of disgust came over him. He hung a black scarf around his neck and stood up to avoid it. Unexpectedly, as soon as he moved a step, he felt a sharp pain in his chest and abdomen, and he couldn't help but groan silently. Xue Qin's almost crazy and embarrassed face immediately appeared in front of him. "I don't understand. You wear a black scarf every time you see me. Are you so stingy about letting me see you?" Mandalawa didn't answer, and even simply closed her eyes. Xue Qin sneered. "Today I want to see what has become of your face that has been hidden for 500 years. As he spoke, the tips of his 5 fingers were as sharp as blades, and they clawed at Mandalawa's face. Mandalawa's heart and lungs were overwhelmed, and he couldn't dodge for a moment, so he could only lean back, always a step too late. Xue Qin continued to press forward, retracting her 5 fingers and striking again. Mandalawa had no way to hide, and the black scarf was already in Xue Qin's hand. She was about to lift it, when suddenly a pressure was exerted on her, and it became difficult to lift her arm. "Stop!" With a scolding, Xue Jun, the son of Lord Yen of the 10th Palace, appeared instantly. He held Xue Qin's wrist and flicked it. Xue Qin let go, but he was still not angry. "Brother, he was the one who humiliated me first." Before he finished speaking, Xue Jun scolded him. "You are not allowed to enter the afterlife space unless you're on duty. This is the rule of the underworld. Have you forgotten?" Xue Qin still wanted to argue, but Xue Jun blocked her voice with a wave of his hand and sent her out of the space with a flick of his sleeves. Xue Jun sighed softly and then walked towards Mandalawa, using his fingers everywhere to untie his blocked meridians. "Well, I'm sorry Xue Qin was rude first. I hope you don't mind." Mandalawa was silent. Xue Jun patted him on the shoulder. "It seems we have some clues about the whereabouts of your father's soul. I'll take you to see him in a few days." Mandalawa was shocked and couldn't help but trembled. "Really? Thank you so much." Xue Jun smiled and disappeared. Mandalawa took off the hijab and suddenly felt something strange on his face. He reached out and touched it, and a trace of blood left him puzzled. He looked around, then lowered his head and carefully observed the flower of the other side for a moment. He found that there was nothing abnormal, and then he felt relieved. Watching the space being distorted and deforming his spiritual roots, he could not forgive, let alone forget, how he was forced to come in. After the 12 hours were over, he disappeared back into the tree. In the cool realm, the Buddha is meditating with his eyes closed. The little water lily has transformed into a young girl in the day and night. Following the chants of the disciples, she is babbling and learning with a smile like a flower. Suddenly, I heard the sound of wind chimes under the Bodhi tree. The girl giggled and went out, but there was no sign of her. She did not come back. She still stood under the tree and waved to the distance. Come back. Joy and sorrow follow the fate. The child's voice was sincere and stirred the Buddha's heart. The Buddha opened his eyes again and said with a tearful smile, "That's how it is. That's how it is. How can there be no end when fate comes together and fate falls apart?" Then she picked up the flowers and flicked them, and the flowers blossomed and fell. In the blink of an eye, the girl had turned into a cardamom girl. She was dressed in red and stood under the Bodhi tree. She looked back blankly and thought about where she came from. Why is this situation so familiar? Buddha sight. Man's Hishawa. Let's go as the fate arises go. The girl didn't linger, as if she was thinking about something in her heart. She left in a hurry. The Buddha holds the Bodhi tree branch in his hand and looks at the past. Amitabha. A sound of the Buddha's name floated closer, and when I looked back, it was the Venerable Gaipa. The Buddha asked, "Are you here to see her off too?" Venerable K replied with a smile, "No, I'm here to greet him." Buddha's relief, also verse. Amitabha. Chapter 3, Searching for Souls in the World. This is an alley of unknown age and direction. It is narrow and rugged. It can only be walked between the two walls that are only large enough for one person.